buttercup, you're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall, won't stop till I get enough.
Okay, so let's dive into this pretty wild story. Imagine, picture this, right? It's New Year's Day in Vegas. Everybody's out, energy's high, and out of nowhere, bam, our rented Tesla Cybertruck explodes right outside the Trump International Hotel.
Whoa.
No, I'm serious. Not exactly the typical way to kick off the new year.
You got that right. I mean, just the image alone is crazy, right? A Cybertruck, fireworks, gas canisters. It's something out of an action movie.
Total chaos. 7 bystanders got hurt, and tragically, the driver didn't make it.
Yeah, what really gets me is where it all went down. The Trump International Hotel. Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
Absolutely. And the story gets even wilder when you factor in the driver, Matthew Livelsberger. This wasn't just some random dude, you know. Livelsberger was active duty U.S. Army.
Okay, so we're talking military involved here.
And get this, he was a Green Beret.
Hold on, a Green Beret. Are you serious?
Yep, elite special forces. The kind of guys trained for, like, the most high-stakes missions you can think of.
I mean, that just throws a whole other wrench into things. We're not talking about some amateur here.
Exactly. To really wrap our heads around this guy, we got to dig into his military background. We've got this article from FOX News that lays it all out, gives us the rundown of the incident, and then goes deep into his service record.
All right, so let's unpack what we know about his time in the service. Well, he served since 2006, got deployments to Afghanistan under his belt. And not just that. He also did stints in Ukraine, Tajikistan, Georgia, even Congo.
Wow, that's a lot of stamps on the passport.
It really is. This guy was seriously globetrotting for the Army. It's clear he wasn't just sitting behind a desk. This is someone who was actively involved in a whole bunch of operations all over the world.
That's incredible. So I'm guessing his medal rack's got to be pretty impressive too, right?
Oh, yeah, you better believe it. This guy was decorated. We're talking 2 bronze stars. One of them even came with a Valor device, which means, you know, he showed some serious courage in combat.
Wow, 2 bronze stars. That's incredible. What else? What else did he get?
He also earned a combat infantry badge. You know, that's not something you just hand out to anyone. That's for soldiers who've seen, like, actual ground combat. And to top it all off, he also got an Army Commendation Medal. And guess what? That one came with a Valor device, too.
So wait, we're looking at a guy with a serious track record of bravery, multiple deployments all over the world, a real decorated soldier.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet here he is, the guy behind this devastating explosion in Vegas. It just doesn't add up.
It really is a tough one to wrap your head around. You see all these signs pointing to heroism and, you know, bravery. And then on the other hand, you've got this incident, this explosion.
Yeah, like you're almost talking about 2 different people here.
And that's kind of the thing, right? It's so easy to put people into these neat little boxes, hero or villain. But Livelsberger's story, it kind of throws a wrench in that whole idea. It really makes you think about, you know, the complexities of human behavior.
Makes you realize that things aren't always black and white.
Right, and that even someone with a military record like his could be involved in something like this.
You know, this is where it gets even more interesting for me. The article mentions the FBI. They were looking into a possible connection between Livelsberger and another incident.
Another incident, yeah.
Happened on the same day, New Year's Day, down in New Orleans. Apparently, another Army vet drove a vehicle into a crowd. Several people got hurt.
Whoa, wait a minute. 2 incidents, same day, both involving Army vets. That's a crazy coincidence.
Right. And there's more. Both guys use the Turo app to rent their vehicles.
Okay, now that's just too weird. Even if there's no direct link, you got to wonder, right, what are the odds? 2 Army vets, both using Turo, both causing harm on New Year's Day.
Exactly. Like, were these totally isolated incidents? Or is there something bigger we're just not seeing?
That's the question, isn't it? And unfortunately, we don't have all the answers. But I think, you know, we got to start with what we do know. Let's take a closer look at Livelsberger's military record, see if it offers any clues.
Good idea. What kind of details stand out to you? What do you think his service record can tell us about the man behind those medals?
Well, you know, when you look at his deployments, all those places, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Congo, I mean, that's got to take a toll, not just physically, but mentally too, you know?
Yeah, PTSD.
Right, PTSD. But it's not just PTSD, it's, you know, it's the whole experience, the exposure to violence, the trauma. It can change a person.
Yeah. I guess we tend to focus on, like, the physical dangers of war, but we don't always think about, you know, the mental and emotional scars.
Exactly. And it's not just the scars. It's also like the moral injury.
Moral injury.
Yeah, it's like when a soldier, they're trained to like uphold certain values,
Right.
and then they witness or maybe even participate in things that just completely go against those values.
And they can really mess with your head, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure. It can create this like deep sense of shame and guilt, betrayal even, and that can be really, really hard to deal with.
Right. So you're thinking maybe Livelsberger, he was involved in some stuff that, really messed with him,
Yeah.
left him with some deep psychological wounds.
It's definitely possible. I mean, we can look at his service record, but we don't actually know what was going on inside his head.
Right. It's like we're only seeing part of the picture.
Exactly. And that's kind of the frustrating part, right? We can try to analyze everything, but without knowing his thoughts, his feelings, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, we're kind of stuck with these big question marks, like what could have pushed a guy like Livelsberger with all his accomplishments to this point? What went wrong?
I mean, you got to think about the transition back to civilian life, too. That's not always easy, even for guys who haven't seen combat. You go from this super structured world, clear mission, strong bonds with your buddies, and then suddenly you're back in the real world. And it can feel chaotic, isolating.
I guess it's got to be kind of jarring, like going from 100 miles an hour to 0.
Exactly. And for someone like Livelsberger, who's used to, the adrenaline, the intensity of combat, everyday life might have felt, I don't know, almost meaningless.
So you're saying that disconnect, that difficulty adjusting, could have played a role.
It's definitely on the table. We don't know what kind of support he had, if any, or if he was struggling with personal stuff, demons.
You know what's interesting? When we first started talking about this case, I was hung up on the location, the Trump International Hotel.
Yeah.
I was thinking, was this some kind of political statement?
Yeah.
A deliberate target? But now, the more we dig into Livelsberger's background, his experiences, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's easy to jump to conclusions, especially when you got explosives and a high-profile location like that.
Right. So, if we're not looking at a targeted attack, what else could it be? A cry for help? Was he trying to make a statement?
I mean, it's possible, but, there's one thing that keeps bugging me. The fireworks. They weren't just hidden away. They were front and center in the explosion.
Yeah, you're right. Fireworks, they're meant to be seen. They're a spectacle.
So could the explosion itself, the visual, the sound, could that have been part of the message?
Like, he wanted to make sure people noticed.
Maybe. I mean, think about it. He was the only one who died. It could have been much worse.
True. It's almost like he was sending a signal flare.
Right.
But if that's the case, what was the message? And who was he trying to reach?
Yeah, it's a question that really makes you think. It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle, but we're missing a bunch of pieces. We can look at the evidence, but at the end of the day, we might never really know what was going on in his head.
Yeah, I hear you. We've got all these theories, but without hearing from Livelsberger himself, it's all just speculation,
Exactly. And that's like a crucial thing to remember here. We're doing our best to make sense of this, but without his side of the story, without understanding his thoughts and emotions, we're always going to have this gap in our understanding.
It's like we've been building this massive puzzle, right?
Yeah.
We're putting all these pieces together, but there's this big hole right in the middle.
And that hole, that's Livelsberger's voice. And without it, we're left with this incomplete picture.
I can't stop thinking about those medals, all those honors. What do you think they meant to him? Were they something he was proud of? Or were they more like, I don't know, a burden, a reminder of things he'd rather forget?
That's a good question. I mean, on the one hand, they represent bravery, sacrifice, all the things we associate with heroes. But on the other hand, you got to wonder if they were also a source of pain. Like, maybe they brought back memories he was trying to bury.
Yeah, it's like there's this whole other side to the story that we're just not privy to. And then you've got that other incident in New Orleans. 2 Army vets, both using rental cars, both causing trouble on the same day. Even if the FBI didn't find a direct link, it's hard to ignore, right?
Totally. Makes you wonder if there's something deeper going on here. Like maybe something about their experiences in the military, something they shared that led them down this path.
Yeah, maybe there's some common thread that we're just not seeing. It's like we're looking at 2 sides of the same coin. On one side, you've got the heroism, the dedication, and then on the other side, you've got this darkness, this tragedy.
And it just goes to show you that people are complicated, right? We can't just label someone a hero or a villain. We gotta recognize that everyone has the capacity for both good and bad.
I think that's a really important point. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways here? What should we be thinking about?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for me is the importance of empathy. We got to try to understand people's stories, their struggles. Levelsberger's story, it's a reminder that things aren't always black and white. There's a lot of gray area.
Absolutely. And behind every headline, there's a human being with their own experiences, their own pain, and sometimes we just don't have all the answers.
Right. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the most important thing is to approach these kinds of stories with, a sense of humility, to recognize that we don't always have the full picture.
Well said. I think we've done a pretty good job unpacking this story. We've talked about the incident, dug into Livelsberger's background, considered the possible connections. And for those of you listening, I hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on this whole thing, a deeper understanding of how complicated it all really is. And hey, maybe even a new appreciation for the mystery of the human experience. Remember, the search for understanding, it's an ongoing journey, right? One that requires curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Thanks for joining us.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.